Hey all, here are OS Reviews. You're watching our hands-on review of the BGVP Q2, also known as the Begin Audio Quantum 2. These are a pair of TWS wireless buds that initially was on Kickstarter starting at $75. And what's interesting here, it's really a dual design. It serves as both truly wireless buds, but it also includes an MMCX cable that you can use to transform them back into a wired 3.5mm pair of IEMs or in-ear monitors. It also packs dual drivers built on in, which are powered by Knowles. So this is definitely going after a more sound conscious and sensitive crowd. Otherwise, they also feature touch control, so you can double tap to do things like play and pause your music. Although one thing you aren't able to do on the Q2 is to raise or lower the volume, which is still a con that I have for many of these TWS buds. The battery life though is pretty decent. It has 7 hours on a single charge. We get 24 hours or so of combined playback, which is also good, about average, I'd say. And it is using, I believe, a Realtek chip, however, so it's not a Qualcomm aptX chip, which does mean if you're expecting the lowest latency, unfortunately that's not going to be found here. But again, for music listening purposes, it should definitely still suffice. Presentation is pretty clean. Underneath, we have a soft carrying pouch that you can use to store it when you're on the go, and there's also the aforementioned MMCX cable, which is actually made out of a braided material, and of course the gold-plated 3.5mm standard headphone jack if you want to use them as wired headphones. That improves the audio quality a little bit. Then we've got plenty of silicone tips to get a more custom fit, and there's also memory foam tips as well, and this will provide some tighter noise isolation and also enhance comfort if you're listening to music for longer stretches of time. With that being said, a silicone tip is going to be more sweat resistant. Finally, we have access to a USB Type-C cable for charging up the battery case, and we also have some quick user guides. So taking a closer look at the design of the earbuds first, they do have a very striking look. They are kind of semi-transparent, so if you reflect it across the light, it almost glows a translucent blue. Very ergonomic, and it allows it to fit into your ears without really falling out or falling loose, despite the fact that they lack a larger wing that kind of catches on the outside. Because of that translucent texture, we can kind of see where the drivers are and the circuitry inside, which is definitely giving a very cool kind of steampunk effect. And then the front here is, again, touch sensitive, so it's like a capacitive key. You can gently tap on it to trigger commands like skip tracks, play pause, and also answer or reject phone calls. There is a slight engravement on the side here that says BGVP Q2. That is done pretty well. And on the very bottom here, we have the aforementioned MMCX cable if you want to use these as wired buds. Now, because of this connector, however, these do not come with any water resistancy rating. So these are not going to withstand the best if you're planning on using them in the rain. But for regular exercise, for casual use walking around, it should still be perfectly fine. Now, as a quick size comparison, here they are next to the MIFO 07s, which are also pretty hi-fi grade, premium sounding TWS buds. And you can see that the size here is comparable with the Q2 here being slightly larger, but still is very lightweight because of the mostly plastic construction. And we also have the Apple AirPods here, so you can see a quick size difference between the two. Again, not too bad. These are still relatively small buds. So coming over to the battery case, it's constructed out of a soft touch rubber material that doesn't attract too much fingerprints. On the side here, we just have the Type-C port for charging. The hinge mechanism looks quite similar to, say, the AirPods. Not a bad thing. It opens and closes very well. It's magnetic and held into place. Just some basic specs are printed on the rear. So opening it up, it has a very traditional design in terms of the battery case, and then the buds themselves just snaps into place with a satisfying click. It is magnetic and it's held into place pretty well. It's easy to pop in and begin charging, and for being dual driver TWS buds, they aren't significantly larger than most single driver units we've seen. It's not as large as, say, the Soundpede's True Engines, which are a little on the bulky side, for instance. Overall, sound quality is excellent, particularly with trebles. It sounds very bright, but you also get plenty of detail, never too harsh, but you can still hear the textures, say, of a singer's voice. Especially in acoustic tracks, it really soars. You're able to hear such clarity, such detail, and precision. Oftentimes, TWS buds would really miss out on. So the drivers here, I think, are making a huge difference. Knowles, again, is really well known for making excellent drivers for small earbuds, and this is no exception here. Mids are also very good. You get, again, plenty of detail. Instrumentals make these really come to life. Also, if you're watching, say, a soundtrack, just everything sounds so lively, dimensional, and the soundstage is surprisingly expansive for small buds. It definitely feels like you're wearing larger headphones. You get really a sense of depth and space when listening to audio. Bass is also definitely present, but it's not going to be the most strong element of the tuning here. I would say it definitely emphasizes mids and also really clear trebles a little bit more. Still, if you're listening to drum beats or EDM type music, you can still feel a bit of a punch as those notes are hit. Otherwise, when you are in the Bluetooth mode, there is a very faint hiss or digital noise in the background, probably caused by the kind of Bluetooth transmission, so it's not going to be completely silent. So it doesn't really distract from the overall music listening experience, but it is something to quickly point out. Now, with that being said, once you plug this in using the MMCX cables, that slight distortion or hiss in the background completely goes away since we're now using it in a wired mode. And now we have a completely silent listening experience aside from the music that you're listening to. So if you want the absolute best clarity in the world, you can still use it in the wired mode. Regardless of if you're using them as Bluetooth buds or wired ones, you still have that really impressive amount of detail and roundness in the treble, as well as great mids. And again, this just makes the sound even cleaner, and of course doesn't consume any battery because it's now just wired buds. Some other points to consider: these do have built-in microphones. However, the microphone on these has been a point of critique. Of course, mics on small TWS buds historically haven't sounded, the best in the world, but especially on these, it's a little bit muffled sounding. And especially if you're outdoors in a noisier environment, it doesn't seem to have noise cancellation. So the microphone here is kind of an afterthought. As long as you aren't getting a pair and relying on them exclusively to make phone calls, I would say it still really isn't a deal breaker, considering that this is an interesting kind of two-in-one form factor at a relatively good price. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the BGVP Q2 or Quantum 2 TWS buds. Again, very distinctive and very unique because of this dual fitting form factor, just extending the utility. At the same time, the audio quality really is great, especially if you're someone that listens to lots of acoustic tracks. Vocals, instrumentals really soar and give you much more detail than many competitors, such as ones from Soundpeeds, QCY, Xiaomi's Redmi AirDots, so on and so forth. So if you like what you're seeing, I would definitely give these a thumbs up, and you can check out more details in the links down below. But for now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the BGVP Q2 Quantum 2 TWS wireless buds with a 2-in-1 transforming design.